What's up people, welcome to another Arcane afternoon. In this video I will be ranking every skill in the game on tiermaker.com. I've done this video before 3 years ago, but since then the meta has changed a lot. Some skills have become more viable than others, some skills aren't used as much anymore because now we use different weapons and different gears. And also, since the last time I made this ranking video, I've become 2 times the #1 rogue in 2022 at the temple event, and also this year at the temple event I became the #1 rogue back to back and even had 5 accounts in the top 10. So this time I'm ranking all of the skills as the best rogue in the game, and let's hop right into the ranking. Alright, so I made a bunch of categories: Arcane, Heroic, Mythic, Legendary, Epic, Rare and Common. And we will start ranking the rogue skills first, and then we will also do the other skills, and at the end we will do the ultimates. Alright, so let's start with the aim shot. This skill used to be the best skill a long time ago before procs were in the game, but the game has changed a lot since then with the procs, and because the aim shot does not have any dot damage and it does not have any area damage, so you cannot proc your Kraken gears with this skill. It's not as useful as it used to be, so I cannot give it an Arcane and it will have to stay at Heroic. It still has really good single target damage, but it's not good enough anymore for an Arcane. Alright, next up we have the Razor Shield, and this skill is not too great but also not too bad. It gives you 10% damage reduction, and it has these daggers around you, and you can cause poison damage to mobs and bosses, which help you to proc. But overall this skill is not too good. So this skill is useful, but it's not too great. You can give it a legendary or epic, but because you can also use it in PvP, I'll just give it a legendary. Next up is the poison shot. This skill also has a little bit of single target damage, and what's good about this skill is that it has dot damage and it helps you proc your gears a lot easier. It's not the greatest way and fastest way to proc your gears, but it is useful, and I still use the poison shot in many of my loadouts. Next up we have the Shadow Piercer. So a lot of low level players use the skill to rotate around the map because they don't have a speed set, but on the highest level this skill is actually really useful. It has really good single target damage, not as good as the aim shot, but what's good about this skill is that it has an upgrade that makes it so that you have 3 little attacks when using this skill. So basically if you use the skill once you get 4 attacks, and it helps you proc your gears a lot easier. So it helps you proc your gears, and you can possibly proc really fast with this skill. Next up is the Shadow Shot, and this is one of the most important skills for rogues. This is the only area damage skill for rogues, and I use the skill in most of my loadouts. It's just really nice. You can hit, I think, up to around 10 mobs with this. The area that it hits is really big, and this skill definitely deserves a Heroic. Without this skill, rogues would probably be the most painful class to play. But yeah, next up we have the Smoke Bomb, and this skill is not used at all in PvE and is also not used in PvP. It doesn't really give you anything, and I will have to give it a rare at best. This skill definitely needs a little bit of a buff. But now let's have a look at the next skill, the Heal skill. This is also one of those, like, this skill you can use in PvP, but that's the only place where it's usable. In PvE it's just not worth it at all right now, so I will also give it a rare. So next up are the traps, and recently the traps have gotten a lot more popular, because if you use the traps with the glintstone set, you get a guaranteed pull with the traps. This is really useful in wave maps, and the traps are actually only usable in wave maps like ECG or temple event. But there's also a few problems with the traps. First of all, there's something wrong with the dot damage of the traps. If you use the upgrade where it gives poison damage, like, your Kraken weapons are supposed to guaranteed proc after 15 hits, and with the traps you can get like 50 ticks easily on mobs, and they keep ticking and you're not proccing. It's a bug. It's super annoying. If they fix that, the traps would actually be even better. But also another big problem with the traps is that they're not really traps, because in reality, if you put a trap down, it stays down. These traps disappear after 5 to 7 seconds. And because the only maps where you use this skill is the wave maps, where there's a countdown for 3 seconds at the start of the wave, and there's also a cooldown at the end of the wave. So in total, it's like 7 to 10 seconds like between waves. So if you put down the trap a little bit too early, they're gonna disappear right when the mobs spawn and they're gone. Like, it's so annoying. Here again, the devs are probably not aware of this. I hope they fix this and increase how long the traps can stay on the ground, hopefully to 10 or 15 seconds. This would help the traps a lot. And honestly, they could also increase the range of the traps. That would make them even better. But so far, how they are right now, I can give them at best an epic, because they are usable in ETG right now for farming. But other than that, they would probably be a common or rare. So these are all the normal rogue skills. And for the rogue skills, I don't want anyone in the comments complaining about how I ranked them. I'm the official #1 rogue for the past 2 years. Nobody in this game can rank these skills better than me, so please, if you want to argue, you can argue with me about the mage and the warrior skills. I'm not a warrior and I'm not a mage, but please don't argue with me on the rogue skills. Alright, so now we're going to rank the mage skills. Again, for the mage and the warrior skills, you can leave your feedback in the comments, but let's start ranking them. So let's start with the curse skill. And for the curse skill, I will actually make an extra category above arcane, and we will call it curse. And curse goes into the first place. I don't understand how a skill can be so broken. So when you use the skill, everyone does 40% total more damage on any boss in the game. If it is Rahab or Hidu or the ETG boss, on every boss you do 40%. Everyone in the party, everyone in the map does 40% more total damage. This skill is just super broken, and it kind of makes the game really unfair, because right now mages have the best single target damage by far. They have the best area damage with the Kraken Aegis of warriors. They have like the best ultimate. They're the easiest to play. So right now there's 0% reason why you should not play mage. Mage is just completely busted. But anyways, let's rank the next skills. So the next one is Lightning Strike. The Lightning Strike is basically an aim shot 2.0, and I will put it next to the aim shot. Really strong single target damage, and in combination with the curse skill, you could even give it an arcane, because you do another 40% extra damage. We will keep it here next to the heroic. Next up, we have the Fireball, and the Fireball is just super broken. It's just a way better version of the shadow shot. You have a way bigger range for some reason as well. So not only is the mage the best at everything, they also have the highest range in the game. So the fireball has a way bigger range than the shadow shot. Then also the impact radius is probably at least the same. So this skill has an area damage, and it also has a dot damage afterwards. So it's like impossible to also proc your gears off of this. So next up is the tornado skill. So this is the first skill that is not as useful for the mages. It has some area damage and also has an upgrade which gives you 50% armor, which is pretty decent, but overall this skill is not as good as the others. That's why no mage uses it. Next up, we have the time shift. This is the clock skill, and this one is another arcane. Really high damage. It is area damage as well, and what makes the skill so broken is that it's super OP in wave maps like ETG and Temple Event again, because every mob that is in range is not attacking you anymore. They're just standing still, they won't attack you. And in addition, you have a lot of area damage, and I think also dot damage as well. So you're gonna proc all of your Kraken items instantly with this skill. So this skill is just super broken, and also one of the reasons mages always get like 5 times the score of all our other classes in Temple Event. So next up is the Frost Shot, and this is basically a Nox Shot 2.0. It has a little bit of single target damage and has a dot damage afterwards, but no mage really uses it. It's not as good as the other skills. So next up we have the Shield skill, and this skill is really good, really high damage reduction, and also gives you 2 seconds invulnerability. And I'm not gonna give it a heroic because you cannot do any damage with this. I will give it a mythic, but it is really useful. Definitely more useful than the Frost Shots. So next up we have the heal for mages. This one is just a little bit better than the rogue one, so I will give it an epic. Alright, so these were all of the mage skills. You can leave your feedback in the comments below and let me know what you think about this rating. And now let's rank warrior. So about warrior, I have the least amount of knowledge, but I will still try my best. So first of all, the hammer. The hammer is a really cool skill, but it's not really used by many warriors. It has some area damage, but overall it's not too OP. Same to this skill. This skill has pretty good single target damage, but still not really many warriors use it. Maybe because it's hard to hit the mobs, especially with a high ping. So next up, the windmill. This is actually the best area damage skill pretty much for warriors. Still not the greatest, but this is one of those skills that you use to proc your Kraken Aegis, and as soon as your Kraken Aegis is procced, you have like pretty much the best area damage. So this skill, I would give it a mythic. Next up is the X, and the X is actually pretty good, really good single target damage. It has a taunt, it pulls, and also has a dot damage. Alright, next up is the heal, and the heal horn is definitely the best heal out of all of the classes. It has the best heal, the biggest range, and also gives 2 seconds immunity. But because it does not do any damage, I will only give it a mythic. But this is one of those skills that a lot of warriors use in many maps. So next up is Vengeful, and this skill gives you more critical hit chance and more damage and a little bit of strength. Overall a pretty decent skill for damage, but not OP. I will give it a mythic. Next up is the Rally Horn, and this skill is used in a few maps, but overall not too good. And I will also give it a legendary. Next up is Jug, and this skill is really useful in many maps. It's a really strong skill, and I will give it a heroic. Alright, so now let's have a look at the ultimates. The ultimates are actually the only skills that have been balance changed like ever. All of the ultimates were changed a few weeks ago. Let's start with the aim shot. So before the balance changes, this ult did basically a little bit more damage than the aim shot, and after the balance changes it now shoots 3 shots. It basically does way more damage than before, and now this is basically a really useful ultimate, but it's not too great, so I will give it a mythic. Next up is the speed ult. So this ult, they added 15% armor, but overall the skill doesn't really give you too much of anything. I still use the skill in many maps just to move around a little bit quicker, but overall the skill is still not good, and I will give it an epic. And the last rogue ultimate was actually buffed the most. So for this ultimate they now added 15% boss damage, and they also added 2 seconds of invulnerability. But overall the 15% boss damage is not enough that it's worth using for damage, and the 2 seconds invulnerability are just not long enough to be worth using, so I cannot give it more than an epic. Alright, so now let's rank the mage ultimates. First let's start with the haste ultimate. So this used to be the best ultimate for mages when it came out, but since then the meta has changed a lot with all of the proc weapons, and now that items like the Kraken armor already give you like 50% haste, and so many other items give you haste as well, and the cap is at 70%, this ult doesn't really give you too much anymore. So this skill probably used to be at around Arcane and Heroic, but currently in this meta I would give it a legendary. So next up is the Meteor. This Meteor ult is basically just a better aim shot ultimate. It hits I think up to 15 mobs, maybe 20. It just hits all of them, and it has insanely high amount of single target damage, and in addition it also gives a dot damage as well now, which even helps you to proc all of your gears now. So overall I will just give this skill an Arcane. And the last mage ult is a shield, and right now I don't see too many uses for this ultimate. Maybe this will be useful in the temple vent, but even there probably mage will just use the meteor skill, so I will have to give this skill an epic. Alright, now let's have a look at the warrior ultimates. Let's start with Rage. So this ultimate used to be the most broken ultimate, and this is actually the only ultimate out of all of the 9 ultimates that did not get a buff in the balance changes. It still gives you 6 times strength and basically gives you unlimited health and unlimited damage for 15 seconds. So there's not really any reason to not use this ultimate. It's still the most broken ultimate in the game. So next up is the Immortal ultimate, and this ultimate gives you 3 times strength and also gives you immunity for 15 seconds. But considering that you're basically immune with the Rage ult as well, and you have way more damage with the 6 times strength, there's not really any reason to use this ultimate. I will just give this ultimate a heroic. And the last Warrior ultimate boosts all allies, and it gives 800% damage reflection, 2 times health and 15% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. It's not bad, but if you look at the other ultimates, it's nowhere near as good. So I will just give it a legendary. So this is my ranking for all of the skills. The developers have been working on balance changes for the normal skills, and this is how I'm ranking all of the skills. There's some skills that are still pretty weak and some other skills that might be a little bit strong right now. And hopefully also with the new balance changes, the developers will add 1 more skill to each class. For rogues, I'm definitely recommending a lightning shot, which chains from one mob to another, so we also get some more area damage. But yeah, this is it with the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see ya in the next one. Bye.